section, all those who are not from the immediate, from the family, should please find another place or go outside, upstairs, to allow the people in the family to be in the ladies section. We apologize, but all those who are not in the immediate, in the family, should please go out and allow the family to have the place in the women's section. Rabbi Sai, it's not that much longer than a year that we're gathered here again for Levaya. Less than 2 years that we were here for Levaya for my mother-in-law's a friend of Racha, and here we are now at Levaya for my father-in-law's a friend of Racha. The Torah says, "Zeh Sefer Toldos Adam." Zalvovis brings down that a person's life, for Nemar Ki Hayom Megillas, a person's life, every one of us writes a Sefer HaChaim, and every day is a page. And he says, Kisu Bahem, write into each page what you want to be remembered from you. We're here today to be Mizbainim, Mishver Zachem Lebracher, was Zeicha to have a Sefer HaChaim of close to 94 years. A very unique Sefer HaChaim. And we're here today to be Mizbainim, somewhat, and try to take away a Seiferus from what he put into that Sefer HaChaim. We'd like to first ask for the Tehillim, Hershel Billet the Rav, Wadarsel, the Engizra of Woodmere, the shul which my father-in-law Zachem Levracha founded. To come up, please say a kapitel Tehillim and a few words.
So, I was asked to say a kapitel Tehillim and a few words by the family, so that's what I'm going to do. I guess Birtam David Shomreni El Ki Chasisi Bach Amar Baranoi Ota Tolasi Bavalecha Likadoshim Asher Baratz Neymar Badirei Kol Hefzivam Yiru Atzalosam Acher Mahoru Balach Sichlis Kehen Idam Ubalesai Shmosam Ospasai Adonai Minos Chalki B'chosi Atot Tomich Gorili Chavalim Nafaluli Banu Af Nachalos Shofar Alai Aborechas Adonai Asher Yotzoni Afleilos Yisiruni Chiliosai Shivisi Adonai Lenegdi Samed Kimimini Valemot Ochen Samach Livi Vayogel Kvodi Apasari Yishkom Labetach Kilos Azov Nafshi Lishol Ositen Chasidechol Roshachas Torieni Orachayim Solas Machos Esponecha Niimos Biyaminecha Netzach. So the few words that I wrote together with my wife. We both had a very strong relationship with Rabbi Kamenetzky, and we felt that he was a wonderful friend, a wonderful community leader. So I often like to speak about a person's name. You know, we say Kishmo Kenhu in both a good way and a bad way, and here we have a lot to say in a good way. We say B'cheser Shem Tov Hol El Gabeim, the crown of a good name is what's most significant. And so in Yadus we put a lot of significance to the name. Binyamin. Binyamin Amar Yidid Hashem Yishkon Levetach Alav Cholfeif Alav Kol Hayom Ubein Teseifav Shochein. Says the Gemara, Tanya, Ritzua Hoysa Yotzeis Michelko Shel Yehuda V'nichneses L'chelko Shel Binyamin Ubo Hayom Mizbeach Banui U'Binyamin HaTzadik Hayom Mitztayer Lea B'chol Yom Livo La Shenemar Chofeif Alav Kol Hayom V'Lefikach Naaseh U'Shpizim Ashchina Shenemar Ben Seifav Mishkan. There was a little strip of land going out of the share of Eretz Yehuda, coming out of Far Rockaway and extending into the 5 towns. And Binyamin Hayom Mitztaer, he struggled with a decision. The 5 towns, many, many decades ago, was not a place where there were yeshivas. It's not a place where there were large Orthodox congregations, not a place where his children could find friends to play with. And he struggled with the decision. Says the Gemara Maseches Sota, Tanya, Haya Rav Meir Omer, B'shor she'amdu al sfas hayam, hayu shvatim menatzchim zeh im zeh. At Kriyas Yam Tov, Suf, the shvatim were struggling with each other. Zeh Omer ani yored tchila el hayam, Zeh Omer ani yored tchila, Chafat Shevet Binyamin v'yarad, lefichach zocha v'naaseh u'shpizan l'shchina. So it says that Shevet Binyamin jumped in first, the head of all, the tribe of Binyamin jumped in first, ahead of all the other tribes. What about Nachshon ben Aminadav? He jumped in first. What do you mean the tribe of Binyamin went in first? So the answer is that Nachshon was the first individual to go in. But Shevet Binyamin, the Kamenetzky family, as a whole Shevet, were the first to come in, a whole family, into the 5 towns, which on a certain level one could call the Great Sea, which had very little in terms of what Rabbi Kamenetzky and his Rebbetzin Cyril Alav Shalom needed for their family. And yet they raised an entire family, Al Taras HaKodesh, and from my perspective, all for the better, and they were all the better for it. Because all of the children of that family, while certainly true to the traditions that were very, very important to the family, also have a certain openness about them, a certain understanding about what a Jewish community is when it's not the kind of community that you would find in a true Jewish community, like we're all familiar with. And because they were raised Al Taras HaKodesh, and because they have this open-mindedness, and they know how to speak to Jews who are not observant, to non-Jews with respect and dignity, they're all the better for it. The Gemara Zvachim says, B'shlosha makomos, Sharsa Shechina v'Yisrael, B'Shilo, B'Nov, B'Givon, U'B'Beis Halamin. God's presence rested on the Jewish people. In Shiloh, Nov and Givon, and the Beis Halamin, U'V'chulam lo Sharsa Elo B'Chelko Shel Binyamin. All of those places were in the share of Binyamin. Shenemar V'Chofeif Alav Kol Hayom. Whatever we have in this community, whether it's the Yeshiva of South Shore, whether it's Yeshiva Teres Yaakov, whether it's the Beis Medrash, the Kollel, whether it's the Young Israel of Woodmere, all of them are B'Chelko Shel Binyamin. He founded all of those institutions. Why? Hard to know why Binyamin got so much credit. Some say he did not bow to Esav, and Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky did not bow to Esav. He remained strong and firm in terms of those beliefs and those traditions that he got from his fabulous family. Some say he did not sell, he didn't participate in the sale of Yosef. Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky was always loyal to his brothers and sisters and always went above and beyond to help them. I just have a few personal stories, and with that I'll close. You know, when I was thinking about coming to this community, so I had a good friend, no longer here, Rabbi Rafal Marcus, Zechron Lebracha. We worked together in yeshiva, and Rabbi Marcus had spent a year as a fill-in rabbi in the Young Israel Woodmere. So he called Rabbi Kamenetzky to sort of make an inquiry for me. And Rabbi Kamenetzky said to him, he was sort of it wasn't so encouraging, he says, Malo latzara hazais. What does he need this for? But from the moment I got here, Rabbi Kamenetzky was an incredible friend. First, I want to say, as a public figure, Rabbi Kamenetzky was such a figure in the five towns. For 60 years, for more than 60 years, I don't know, but it's hard to find a public figure about whom no one has a negative word to say. He was universally revered and loved. He raised a fantastic generation of children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, Talmidim, whom he loved and they loved him also. I can just say in terms of my own children, he used to speak to me, how is Maishala? How is Duvidel? How is Avramov? That's how he would talk to me. He had a fantastic smile. He had Chaim. He had Yofi. He had Hadras Panim. He had good eyes. He was short in physical stature, but a giant of a man. And he made friends with everyone. He was respectful to all, Jew and non-Jew, young and old, shomer mitzvos, non-observant. And he and his Rebbitzin, and she should always be recognized, because she stood beside him, not behind him, but beside him. They made a great team. For me, he was very, very special. He had a bracha at all of my children's weddings, except one that was in Eretz Yisrael. He was a sandik to my son, Maishala, and always worried about him. He was, when we had a terrible loss in our family, he brought Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetzky to our house to bring us special kind of solace, and it was really very, very meaningful. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetzky, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, all of those things. And so in Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky, you see a man who came to a community that was an offshoot of Farakaway, that had nothing much in terms of what he really needed. And so, as they say, if you build it, they will come. He built it, they came, and this community, all of it, is a credit to him and to his wife for all that he accomplished. Yehei Zichro Baruch.
You will have from each mishpacha a grandchild saying a kapitel Tillim, and now from our mishpacha representing Rabbi Leo Sipperstein to say a kapitel Tillim. Bismillah David.
I can't see some words. Most of the theme that people will be saying about Zaidi was is Ava. As we can see from the outpouring, the people coming early, to come participate in the Levaya. Why was he there for all this? And the answer is Magam Pune Zaidi was a classic Bart that he said over from the Kidega. I heard it many times. The question that the Kidega asked was, how come there's so much going up to Kriya Shema? There's so many terms of Ava, Avoichem Yisrael B'Ava. Why is that the prelude to the actual Kriya Shema itself, the brachas? And the Kidega answered, that in order to us to be able to come to Hafs Hashem L'kecha, there's K'mayim Panim El Panim. That we specifically keep on being repetitious, the Ava of the Eibush to Klal Yisrael, in order to create K'mayim Panim El Panim. That theme was Zayd's theme of life. Whoever he came in contact was K'mayim Panim El Panim. Whether it was a young child, whether it was a nurse in the hospital, in the nursing home, anywhere, any person he touched the spark of Ava to them, and that was K'mayim Panim El Panim. You should be Meil's Yosha for the Mishpacha, for the whole 5 towns, for God's Klal Yisrael, for Bilam, Novis, Manesach, Nochashem,
Next kapitel will be kapitel Kuf Kaf Aleph Shir Lamalos.
This kapitel starts with Esainai al-Aron. Chazal say that it's referring to the Hayrim, the Skosavis that we all have. Today he was 93 years old, but what he accomplished was what people accomplish in double that amount of time. Anyone he met, he was reaching out to help. Whether it was a person that he was reaching out to because they needed the help, or the next person that he met saying, I know someone needs a shidduch, I know someone needs a job. Sorry said that the phone was ringing on Friday because all the people that Zadie called every Friday were calling him, trying to figure out why he wasn't calling them. You know that the holding Zadie's hand from when we were little, walking to shul with him, handshake, up until a few weeks ago, in the hospital or the nursing home, that same Varmkeit is something that we all have. The Chayf is that Bobby and Zadie, but into this mishpacha, should be close to gesund, Hanosta, and the Iker for what they were Shayf, the mishpacha of Yereim and Shleimim that are here, and wherever they are, wish you Zayf to be mamshach in the airways, and wish you Zayf that there should be a male Seisha for all of us.
Kuf Lamed, Shir HaMa'alois, Rav David, Rav Baruch Mordechai Leftwitz will say.
Shir HaMa'alois, Minamakim Krosivagino, Adrino Yishimoni Koili, Tienos Namakashu Bois, the Kol Kachanino, Oino Istishloya, Adrino Miyamo, Just a few months ago, when Rabbi Kamenetzky was in front of us, giving over the hesped, giving over by the yard site for Rabbi Kamenetzky, and he said, "Tzadik b'emunaso yichya, tzadik b'emunaso yichya." What does it mean when a tzadik lives b'emunah? He said, "Tzadik b'emunaso yichya" is very nice when you look and see people that live b'emunah, but to live with emunah, to live through it. He said over the famous story that when he came to the 5 towns, Rabbi Kamenetzky looked around after a few days and says, "What are we doing here? There's no kashrus, there's no tznius, there's no ruchnius. Take me home, take me back." Rabbi Kamenetzky said, "I'll take you, but first speak to my father." He said she called up to Rabbi Kamenetzky, and Rabbi Kamenetzky says, "We was the Torah given, the Torah was given in the midbar." He says, if you go ahead and you embrace it like the Yidden lived in the midbar, you live it with emunah, you will be successful. He says, look around, the Mageiniklach, Baruch Hashem, all the Eineklach that I have, the children, the grandchildren, Yer Shemayim. We don't just look at emunah, you got to live with emunah. He encouraged us to live with emunah. Emunah wasn't just enough to see on other people, but to live with constantly. The Yidden came to the Madrig of emunah when they went into the Yam Suf. Rabbi Binyamin Hashem, Moshe Avdei, Moshe led us into the midbar, led us into the Yam Suf. We came out, we were in the Minim Shleimim, we needed to go through the process of the Yam Suf. We needed to create Yam Suf. We needed to be put in a situation where it seemed desolate, it seemed unimaginable that we can have success. Yet if you put yourself into it, you live through the krichas, you push yourself over the top, you put yourself in the situation, you live with Take Emunah with you, you'll come to the ultimate Emunah. We should be zeicher that we should use this, and we should take this, the Eineklach should take this, the children should take this, the community should take this. It should be Bilam HaNesach.
Little Kufman Beis, Master of David, would be Yehuda Baruch Kamenetzky, of Yehuda Baruch.
Still David, Yesei Bamara, Sefila. Keli Adonai Azak, Keli Adonai Eskana. Lefanav Sifti, Tzarasi, Lefanav Agir. Yisate for life, ידעת נסיבסי, וירזו ההלך תמנו ואכלי. הבית ימין רעי ואיני מכיר, אבל מנס ממני אין דרש לנפשי. לך אדוני אמרתי אתה מחזי דרכי בארץ החיים הקשיבה נעשי כי דלוי סימי הצילני מדווי כי ימצאו ממני היציאה ממסגר נפשי לא ידע יסס שמך יפתירו צדיקים כי סגמל עלי. Zaydi, I was zeichet to spend Shabbos Talmud Pesach with you in the nursing home, and I watched how when anybody would come, and especially the Einiklach of Rabbi Yitzchak, he should have a Rosh Lema, came to visit him. How Zaydi was so happy, and he asked them, "How you're learning? Where do you learn? Who's your Rabbi?" With such a simcha. Every single Yiddish kind, that was Zaydi's life. Zaydi used to say in every speech I ever heard, the word continuity of the Yiddish people. And it's through the Zaydi worked. I can't even say how hard he worked. Everything was the yeshiva. His entire life, he gave everything for the yeshiva. He gave everything for the Yiddish Kinder, and that's what meant the most to him. That the Yidden will live on al Taras HaKodesh to be mamshach the Duris, and that was the essence of Zaydi. Zaydi lived his life for other people, never about himself. Every Friday we would come in to visit, and he'd be on the phone in his office. He'd, "Baruch, get me my book. I need to call the Almanas. I need to call the people who have nobody who's going to come visit them on Shabbos." That was his life. Everything for the kinder and for the people who weren't taken care of. And that was Zaydi, and that's how I'll always remember you. Zaydi should be a mitzvot for the mishpacha, for the community, and for Gans Klal Yisrael.
Now we'll say Kapitel Aleph, Asher Halish, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetzky.
אשרי האיש אשר חלוי הלך בעצס ושרים ודרך הטועים לא יונות ובמושב ליצים לא יושות כי אם בסוירס אדוני חפצוי וסרסוי יקי יום חלוי לא Shasul al Palgenoim, Asher Piryo Yitain Bitoy, Vilei Lo Yiboil, Echol Asher Yase Yatzliah. Lechein Harshaim, Ki Im Kamoitz Asher Tidfen Ruach. Al kein lo yakumu rishonim b'mishpat v'chatoim b'adas tzadikim. Ki yodeya Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishonim toivei. Just like to echo for a minute the themes we've already spoken about and which seem to be the theme of the day. To say, tell you over 3 lines of the Mesilas Yesharim and Perek Yates and Chalak HaChasidus. It says in Mesilas Yesharim, Ki ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oihev. Hashem has no love except El Elohim Sho'ev Es Yoidav.
The only one who HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves is the one who has Ahavas Yisrael. V'chol ma she'odom magdil ahavosei l'bnei Odom, and as much as a person will increase his love to people and to Yidden, Gam HaKadosh Baruch Hu magdil olov. So too Hashem will be magdil, will increase his Ahavah to this individual. Ve'ele heim ha'royim ha'amitim shel Yisrael. And these are the true shepherds of Klal Yisrael. Shakadosh Baruch Hu chofetz b'hem harbe. Shakadosh Baruch Hu desires these individuals, these royal Yisrael, shemoisrim atzmam al tzoynoi, who sacrifice themselves on the tzoyn kadosh of Klal Yisrael, v'dorshim u'mishtadlim al shloimah miteivosa b'chol adrochim, and they seek out and they try to accomplish shloimah miteivosa, with the peace and the goodness of Klal Yisrael wherever they are in all ways. V'oimdim tamid ba'peretz v'spal alayim, and they always are jumping in to be nispal, to daven for Yidden, v'loftoyach lehem shari brocha, and to open for them the shari brocha. Holomazah doimah, to what is the similar la'av, to a father she'enoi oihev shum adam yoiser mimishu roya she'oihev as born of avad emona. And this is the theme of the day. Is avad emona to us and to all Yidden. Remember how he always told us, tell your brother you love him. You'll be Mekayim and mitzvot deraisa. And that ava is something that although we feel like we know is shared with all Yidden, but we never felt like it detracted from his attention to us because he had a leiv moli ava big enough for us and for all Klal Yisrael. Yirotzen that this midah of mishtadlim al shloimah miteivosim b'chol adrochim v'oimdim tamid ba'peretz l'spal aleim l'ftoyach aleim shari brocha should continue, that they should be able to continue this midah, to be mispal for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the mishpacha, for the toiv and the shalom of us and for all Klal Yisrael, in the name of my siblings. That's why I asked Mechila. We were always the furthest, but that's exactly where he wanted us to be. Because you didn't build people, you built builders. And builders have to go out sometimes, and that's where he wanted us to be, and that's the nachas we had from the Vikings, like you always said. Hey, Zichrei Baruch.
And now, I'd like to ask Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky Shlita in the Peta to come and say Divrei Hesed.
For success. Klal Yisrael, children of the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's a simul koch menachem. Shouldn't do anything. The Rishonim say that the no ba'olam, if someone just passes, so people used to cut themselves. The Zeichad and Nifta. And the Pasuk tells us Bnei Yisrael are different. Bnei Yisrael are the ones that has to show them. What happens? Shrefa Chamaisa, Tata goes away. Not simple. The Rabbeinu Shalom says, Ya'abanu L'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shem even add that you have a father that's even closer to your father. The Rabbeinu Shalom himself. The Rabbeinu Shalom himself is worried about Yesenia. The Rabbeinu Shalom's love to children, to call this Lord, and they call this Lord, is such a kiru that has no good in at all. The Rishonim say that you have to compare a passing of a relative like he went away for a while. When Yetzer Hashem will come back, Mashiach is not far away, he will come back. He said, the derech is that you cry. Someone goes away, even if he goes away for a while, a person cries. It's not push it, but crying comes from. They say, but a shame shall go. When a person is informed, you had a child. Your first child was a Gewaltig. And the person's so happy, he starts to cry. Why does he cry? They say, said that he's crying now because he's doomed to die. He'll go away for a while. So B'shas Maaseh, because a Gewaltige Simcha, you had a child. Your first child was born. But at the same time, there's Gaguim, that the person cries, what will be the end? But the Rabbeinu Shalom tells us, the Bnei Matan Hashem Elokeichem. You are children of the Rabbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Shalom lives with you. So we have to realize that the closest a person to human being is the closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was spoken, my brother Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, is in Senes HaChaim, and I think it has to be mentioned that he was there to break through in this area, in Schus, and the Mesirus, what Tzivon Alei Hashem. Because ihr Starkheit came from such a Starkheit, and this story says the opposite. Let's move. But she's the one that broke through the neighborhood. She's the one that gave such a Mesiras Nefesh. And Baruch Hashem, as Rabbi Billet said, in this area, all the kingdom of Naitera, Pnei Aliyah, Baruch Hashem, it's something that should be admired, but at the same time we have to realize it's Mesiras Nefesh. And how true it was when people said that he worried about every person in the world. He was in Mesiras for people. It was such a love for people that he cared. It was part of himself. That's how it was. Person have to cry the Hoylech, to be mamshich. It is our Mesiras that we have to see to continue. But what he taught us, but the way he lived, should continue in the mishpacha and help others. And that is our Messiah. The Bereshit should see, should be a meditation for our mishpacha, for all of us, from ganzen Klal Yisrael, for all the neighbors, all the best.
I'd like to call up some Petra. Just over Kalashina Rebbe, from Cedarhurst, Rabbi Spiegel, who was so close to the Mishpacha, and they're so close from to my father-in-law and to my mother-in-law. His words, someone mentioned to me yesterday, how his words at the Levaya, my mother-in-law, Zachem Lebracha, the ration that they made, and that it just was a very declaration. We'd like to call out Rabbi Spiegel. Say it again.
Every morning when we daven, the Birchas HaShachar, we say, Sitneinu lechein lechesed v'rachamim be'einecha u'be'einei kol re'einu. We pray and we bespalo to the Rebbeinu Shalom that he should accept our tefillos be'einecha, in your eyes, in Hashem's eyes, u'be'einei kol re'einu, and everyone in this world who sees us. Do we really know if our tefillos were accepted? Rabbi say, a approximately, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, my brother Rabbi Binyamin was doing his chesed like he always does. He was trying to make a shul for the Sfardim, and he wanted to give them a special minyan because they daven differently than even the Nusach Sfard. He was carrying a Sefer Torah up down the steps for that particular minyan, and unfortunately he slipped and he fell, and and everybody knows at that time what happened. He was unconscious, and if I recall, his son Matal Mati, the doctor came over to him and he said, if I was your father, I would pull the plug. No life, garnished. And what he said, Zazach goyret azoy. And he survived for these many, many years. And you know why? Because the Gemara said there was another Binyamin. Besides the Binyamin of the Shiftei Kor, there was a Yamin Geder in a generation, Binyamin HaTzadik, and he also took ill. And the Gemara says, the Malachim in Shamayim said, how can we let this person down? And he added years, many, many years. And that's how I know that when he became well, he continued on in his work, that the Rabbeinu Shalom was mekabel his tefillos, be'einecha, in your eyes, the Rabbeinu Shalom, his tefillos meant unveiled to you, and you let him live through that terrible episode, that accident. Mamish, he went back the way he was in full swing. Be'einecha, your tefillos, Binyamin. Binyamin, you're down with us every Rosh Hashanah for 46 years. You said, you sat on my side, but I sat on your side. This was the last year that you didn't come with us. Take a look what happened. I don't know. You place. For incidents, my evidence is not 100% yet also. Deine Tfilas mehr Rasach, weil wir beide Shalom. And then there is Ube'ine, Kol Vayenu, as you heard from many, many, many people. Gemara says, Havidoim Eloi, or Lachta B'dvocha, Havidoim Eloi. How can you be doing to the Rabbeinu Shalom? I want to tell you, when Rabbi Kiva was nifta, they said, it says in the beginning of the davening, Hoidu Lashem Kiru Bishmai, for a Yid to recognize the Rabbeinu Shalom, you don't have to speak about him, all you have to mention his name. Kiru Bishmai, if you mention his name, is Hoidu Lashem. People give recognition. As we have been gesagt, Rabbi Kiva Abai say, you mention the name Rabbi Kamenetzky anywhere. Rabbi Kamenetzky, you saw Wassa, who was in the village of Cedarhurst. He told us on Shabbos that the Goyim said he was a giant. Hoidu Lashem Kiru Vishmoi. Binyamin, your name is here. B'holach lefonecha tzidkecha. There's police. There'll be hundreds of people walking and escorting you to the Olam Oemes. There are much more, thousands and thousands of stockers that are going in front of you. I can't mention them. There are millions and millions and millions. I would be a right, that what he would allow me, I would tell you what he gave away of himself. He gave away his own thing. And my sister, she didn't let him do an act of kindness which was superior. I can't tell it to you, but but he gave pardons to people who weren't allowed to be in the United States. People who weren't friendly to him. He gave it to them because he knew senators and alles did what they can. He knew everybody. Binyamin, what can I say? You knew me when I was 8 years old, when you married Cyril. And we were close the whole time. You brought me here when you began the shul in the Young Israel on West Broadway. I should have laid for you when I was 15, 16. And I stayed in your house, and you brought me here to make the shul, Cyril and you. Oh my God, I can't even thank you so much, Baruch Hashem. It is so helpful. So then I get the better. Always ask me how the lips and how good it is. I will give it better for home, yes Hashem. But the ganze Mischpoche von deinen Kindern, Matti und Zvi, dein Eheklach, und the Techter, what Sora went through to help you one day. Esther, everybody, Shoshana Alamin. He should help him say, I put it better for everybody in the community. Bila Hamoros Lanetzach. Umoch Hashem v'kim dimon yalpokronim.
A lot has been said. And Baruch Hashem, the Gemara says, "May espeidu shalodam nikar mena u'benelam habo." From the way people speak by a husband, it's nikva persons of benelam habo. This has been repeated again and again. We say every morning, we said this morning, Elu dvorim she'ein lahem shir. These are things that have no shir in the Reiste. Ha'pe'er bikurim u'gemilus chasodim. The Gemara explains, gemilus chasodim with moment is a shir, but gemilus chasodim shebegufa. Gemilus chasodim is done personally. That has no shir. And as was said, that's something we will never know. As David mentioned, everybody in the Mishpacha did Gefiya Choltam. We was after the last Kufa that he lived by us. It was not to be believed. Not to be believed, that we had to go and do. As I mentioned, every day is a page. And a day couldn't go by, not a day, an hour couldn't go by. During the day, we had to hire for him a driver, so we should know where he is, and especially after he recovered with Derech Nes. So he needed a little shmira, went to every Bika Chaylan, went to every Nichem Avelan, ones we knew about, ones people he knew, he didn't know. He had to do chesed. He came home at night, he was tired. On the phone, what do you mean? This person needs a shidduch, this person needs a job, this person this person that. And he didn't give up. I kept telling people he had enough drive for 10 people. As Mzil Zishorim says, Zrizus comes from the Slavos. There was a bren, the Avos Chesed of Avraham Avinu. As was mentioned, the Koyach HaMamida B'Nesoyim, a lot of Shverakaiten, a lot of difficulties. Avraham Avinu also came to a world that was a midbar, and Avraham had to break the ground. Afterwards, Yitzchak and Yaakov were able to go on, and they were makar on their own. But the one who broke the ground was Avraham Avinu, and what's the title? The Esenes Yonis. And that was the pshat. There was no such thing as stopping him, and in his mind, but it's also about Snei Aleches. We don't begin to know how many people he helped. A lot of the things that were mentioned, we didn't know ourselves. The Mishpacha didn't know. We find out Chasam he did for people, we didn't have a clue. We didn't know, and he's never looking for a brekel of kavod. Nothing. Nothing. He did it at the expense of his own gesund, he was pamato. As the Mishpacha knew, his margel of Apume at the end was, don't make me invalid. He says, ich bin ein Mensch. And at every simcha, he danced as a yinkel for 20. He said he's young, but he came to daven in the yeshiva. He wanted to be around young people. I had this morning, this morning, a Sephardi Bocher, a Bocher who happened to come to the Yeshiva recently. He said, you know what? It's a strange thing, he said. I came to your father-in-law after davening in the Yeshiva, and I had just begun seeing a girl recently. He comes up, I come over to him, he says, you know, you're going to get engaged soon. 2 weeks later, I became a chassid. And this is somebody who, Mamish, came to the Yeshiva. He wasn't even a regular Talmud in the Yeshiva. He went over to him. Mamish, and today he told me this meister, but that was it. He thought I had the koyach habracha. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom was, because he had this thing. He had the need of Avraham Avinu v'Avas Chesed. A day couldn't go by without Chesed. He couldn't live without it. But Nachmer is it. While the Muslims point out, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah points out only a few incidents in the beginning. What's the common denominator? The Altum tells us, Noisei ba'oil im chaverei. Vayetzi alecha vayar b'sid leisim. I was nishtayman. Somebody else's problem was like his problem. He couldn't have menucha. It wasn't Shadam Zedin's problem. It's my problem. And that's mamish. And that's why it was mentioned he was so selfless. He didn't think about himself. What do you mean? I have a problem. If that person doesn't have a job, they don't have this. It was nishtayman sever. The leader von Avram von Avas Chesed. And Leise Ba'olam Chaverei. Agades Pede Duye. I'll mention just a member he used to say always from his mother's Zachem Levracha. He said this Geseder, he said, Was metut fayenen nent nit. What you do for somebody else, that's what you take along with yourself. What you do for yourself, you don't take along. And as David mentioned, the Rebbe mentioned, the millions of the chasodim and the malochim that were created from this chasodim and toibus was something that we'll never know. Only the Rebbeinu Shalom knows because the Sefer HaChaim, as we mentioned, his Sefer HaChaim, their Sefer Tolas Sodom, only the Rebbeinu Shalom knows. And he was zecher to be married to his mishpacha. Everyone took their chelek in being taken care of him, especially after this tkufa that the Rebbe in Zachem Levracha was nifter. Everybody, and it's talking his Pegim Severin. As I said, we had the Schusi of the Vayas in the house, I was in how he was Meirish, that leader of selflessness. They cared for him, they took care of him at the expense of their own Teiches, Lamalab and the Teiches, but those have gesehen by the Tata. So the Eivish to help him, we should take away Agnes Pede Bluye. That's something we can all take from. And this Kufa, the Chablish HaMashiach, where there's so many tzoras, the Gemara says, Yasik Barteru, the Gemilas Chasodim. Gemilas Chasodim. Think, what chesed can you do? How can you do a chesed with somebody? You hear a tzara from a yid, Boskem Beton, Daven and Kemen, Zogat Tfilah, have someone else in mind. So the Eivish to help him, he should be a Melech Gesher. I'm asking Mechila Meir for my mishpacha, the ganze mishpacha, especially you live by us. And Chutztem, the ganze Zeit, I was in Eden for the longest time so far. So the Eivish to help him, there's noch mehr 120 Jahre, Mashiach soll kommen. So, alle seien gesund, asking Mechila, on behalf of the mishpacha, my mishpacha, everybody. So the Eivish to help him, there's no sein Tage, Beholach und Vernechatz in Kecha, and in Shemayim, seine Tfilis, seine Chesed soll angenommen werden, bei ganz Klal Yisrael. Yisich Baruch. And now, my Shvager, Rav Shlomo Wilhelm, to say, Divrei Hesped.
Only one point I want to say, there's so much to say. The burden of Tzibah is to say so long. One thing I want to mention before about how you know how to stop. Be worried the way he ran and danced and he did everything. And I just want to feel family that said, we're not going to try to stop him. be mindful of this, the practices is covered. There should be a meditation for everybody, for the whole Mishpacha. Just the last time he was in the Glendale rehab, the chesed that they did for us. Let's sit down. If I have to eat, he said to me, such pain. He never said he had pain. He asked him, what's doing? How do you feel? I'm okay. He was afraid if he says there's pain. It would make him slow down. I had no pain. Nothing hurts me. And you could see that he couldn't sit there to say that. But he said he was trying to curse it. He ate the matzah. He came to the yachatz. He sat in like Malach with his kittel. And he broke it exactly here both nights. I know he was upset with me personally because I always tried to stop him with the chassans. I would try to slow him down with dancing. He was running out like a child. The simcha, the same simcha that the chassan had, he had. I just want to ask the chiyuv for myself, my wife, all of us that we do what we should do for him. Should be made for all of us.
The yeshiva here, which was his crown jewel, Yeshiva Teres Chaim, the long-time Menayel, who worked with him for so many years and decades, Harav Chanina Herzberg.
When I was interviewed to become possible candidate for the Menal of the Yeshiva 37 years ago. So, Rosh Yeshiva was talking to me. He wasn't well at that time. He had some sort of surgery. We're talking, and I asked him, what prompted you to come to the 5 towns? What motivated you? He told me that his father, told him, and he told it to me a number of times. So wie die Teure ist gegeben geworden in der Midbar, darf the Marbet's Teure sein in the Midbar. Just like the Torah was given in the Midbar, so too you have to be Marbet's Torah in the Midbar. And the rest is history. I remember one time specifically driving with him down West Broadway. First year I became the Menal, and he told me, you'll see, this neighborhood is going to be shuls, more shuls, shtiblach, yeshivas. They're going to come. And that's what the job is all about. I have to tell you that I truly believe, Kafki Balki from my Rabbi, that everything emanates from the top. I have to tell you that the Rosh Yeshiva smiled when he came into the yeshiva, the way he greeted every Rebbe, every parent, anyone. It was infectious. It was something that was very unique and very special. In fact, I want to tell you that last few months when he wasn't 100% well, he made it his business to come to yeshiva almost every day. It was hard for him to go up the steps. So he was sitting in a conference room near the offices on the main floor. And one day he comes over to me and he says to me, "Where's the Yingle that came by yesterday?" I said, "Which Yingle? What's his name? Who's his Rebbe? I don't know exactly who you're talking about." He said, "No, he came to me and I asked him something and he gave me the right answer." He says, and I promised him a candy. When I put my hand in my pocket, I didn't have a candy. So I told him, you'll come back tomorrow, I'll have a candy for you. Where's the Engel? Where is he? Well, finally, after some detective work, we found the Engel. And the Engel came to him and he said, Rebbe, you remembered about my candy. He says, it's the most important thing to me, is your candy. You're learning Torah. I want to just tell you one thing. One last thing. I remember one time I had a bris out of town, and I had forgotten my talis and tefillin in the yeshiva. So I decided on the way to Muncie, I'll stop by the yeshiva, and I'll pick up my talis and tefillin. I pull up to the yeshiva 4:30, maybe 4:45 in the morning. Is Rosh Yeshiva's car outside at 4:45 in the morning. I got scared. I didn't know what to do. Maybe I should call the police. I don't know. Anyway, I went into the building. There's the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Binyamin, sitting there in his office, huddled up. It was a freezing cold day. I said to him, Rabbi Kamenetzky, what are you doing here? He says, I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I was here last night, and I don't remember if I set the heat. And I was worried that the kids are going to come in the morning, the Talmidim will come in the morning. It'll be cold, they won't be able to learn. He says, I came, I made myself a coffee, and he was sitting there, mamish, huddled up with the shivers, because the kids, when they come in, it has to be warm. Rabbi Binyamin's whole life, it was Fahrenheit, it was a smile, it was making a kid feel like $1 million. It was something very unique and very special. Spalo that he should be Mispalo, he should be a Melitz Yosher, of course the whole Mishpacha, the Yeshiva, the Talmidim, the Rabbeim, the teachers, the Moros. Baruch Hashem, he did something very unique and very special. We should be Zoichem Yetz Hashem B'Yom Lovas L'Netzach. Amen.
Now, we have the schus to hear, so we pray for Dushas. The Mr. Rebbe Shlita, Shame, who my father was a fan of the Lord for many years going back, but the shame that answers with earlier.
I'm not here B'Shem Kamenetzky earlier. I'm here because I wanted to be present at the Levaya of this Adam Chosh Ma'od. And primarily because I am the Talmud of Yeshiva Teres Chaim when I was still in East New York. And it goes back a long time. And Schmidt mit der Chaim der Bracha, who had all of the yeshiva on his shoulders in those years when I was a little boy, and the Habbatus Torah that took place in those classrooms, which only had about 15 or 16 boys in each class. During the days when that Jewish neighborhood was apparently not the Roy, unable to provide, to educate the parents who lived there, the Balabatim, the families who lived there, that it's vital to send a Jewish child to a yeshiva in order to preserve his Yiddishkeit. And the tuition was $2 $200 a month. And yet, he and Mr. Sukanik, Zechanim Levrocha, would canvass the families in the neighborhood and do all they can to bring boys to the yeshiva. And the yeshiva did a great deal to be mechanech el chayidin, talmidei chachamim to be. And many, a great soul, came from that Mokum Torah. Those who are already Ba'alma D'Kshait and Yibodlu L'chaim, those are, Baruch Hashem, still Ba'alma Hadein. It was the Mokum Torah of the neighborhood. It was that Beis HaYotzer that transformed Yiddish and Neshomas and gave them not only a taste of Yiddishkeit, but made them absorb a thirst for Yiddishkeit, which they continued on, most of them, in later years, and became, in many cases, an inspiration and a fountain for other Jews. It transformed our Thomas Hayavashis, dry bones, into Yidden that felt the Ruach Hashem in them all the time and made a great contribution to Klal Yisrael in many constructive ways. And as a little boy, and I still remember vividly the role that this Mokum Torah played in our neighborhood, in our families, amongst the people who appreciated what Yeshiva Teres Chaim was. And the Eibishter gave it the Siyata V'Shmaya of B'Zorach HaShemesh U'Bo HaShemesh. It was a giant of a mechanech like Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky who transplanted it into a new area, into a community that had not yet tasted what true Torah Chinuch means it is to the future of our families and our people. And the Hakaras Taiva that this area owes to Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky is indefinable. And only someone who belongs to an older generation can appreciate the kind of Ohiv Torah, the kind of Ne'em L'Bris that he was in previous years. When Yeshiva Teres Chaim, we all thought, was in the period of decline, like the entire neighborhood was. And here came this great man, Mishpachas Gedolim, and completely turned back the tide and brought Yeshiva Teres Chaim to the heights, as you all know better than I do. It is for this reason that I came to express my Hakaras Taiva and pay homage and kavod ha'achron to the great Nifter. I represent nobody but myself, even though It is a great schus for all Kabbalah and Babi Tzitayla to share in this Kabbalah. But we're not always able to make it. And it's not easy for older people to get around. But if you don't have HaKadosh Teva, you don't deserve the Teva. Rashi tells us in Parshas Bereshis, Ki lo himtir Hashem Elokim al ha'oretz, godem ayin lavi b'sodoma. Before man was created, it didn't rain because there was nobody to appreciate the rain. So in order to show appreciation, you've got to be there. And you've got to express it. And when the Klal Yisrael came to Eretz Yisrael, and they brought Bikurim as HaKadosh Teva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu for bringing them to this land, we are told in the Torah there was not only enough to bring the Bikurim, but there's a mitzvah, Mikra Bikurim. V'anisa v'amarta, to show that you're Makat Teva, to show that you appreciate the Teva that was done to our people by bringing them into the Eretz of Aschal V'Dvash, from which you bring Bikurim. So therefore, as a little token of HaKadosh Teva, from the people who lived in that neighborhood 70, 80, 90 years ago, in the East New York, about Framo, and Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky was Makayim the Bezorach HaShemesh, after we all thought we are at the period of Ne'ilah, Bo HaShemesh. But it wasn't to be so, because here was a man of vision. Here was a man who looked forward to bringing Torah Chinuch to greater heights. And this was his great accomplishment in this community throughout these years. He leaves a mishpacha nechbota ma'od of Ma'apitzei Torah. Not to speak of the Yeshiva Zayin Gesund, Lerechem V'Shalom Tevim, the Philadelphia Yeshiva. They wish to help them, that you all receive somewhat of the chizuk that you so richly deserve. At a moment like this, the koyach to carry on the siyata d'shmaya, to go to still greater heights, and be ma'abatz Torah, and raise the new generations by keeping the image, the zikaron, of the great niftal before your eyes at all time. And this is schus for the entire area, for the entire community, that you're able to have been an Achsanya Shel Torah for Rabbi Binyamin, for his ideas, for his life, for his family. And it's a great schus to all of you. And I consider it a schus for myself, for having been able to make it here today. In the Dalazain, gestarkt und getreist, wo ich sie sippele dabei. May we all see how the boy is the sky Gila Hamabas Lenetzach, Mocha Hashem Elokim, Tiba Meyal Kol Panim B'chad L'Samay Yosef. Amen.
A lot has been said, and Baruch Hashem, Gemara says, "May a spade shalom nikar mena u'benelam haba." From the way people speak by a hesped, it's nikva person's a benelam haba. This has been repeated again and again. We say every morning, we said this morning, Elu dvorim she'ein lahem shir. These are things that have no shir in the Reiste. Ha'pe'er bikurim u'gemilus chasodim. So the Gemara explains, gemilus chasodim with moment is a shir, but gemilus chasodim shebegufa. Gemilus chasodim is done personally. That has no shir. And as was said, that's something we will never know. As David mentioned, everybody in the Mishpacha did Gefir Choltam. We was after the last Kufa that he lived by us. It was not to be believed. Not to be believed, that we had to go and do. As I mentioned, every day is a page. And a day couldn't go by, not a day, an hour couldn't go by. During the day we had to hire for him a driver, so we should know where he is, and especially after he recovered with Derech Nes. So he needed a little shmira, went to every Bika Chaylan, went to every Nichem Avelan, ones we knew about, ones people he knew, he didn't know. He had to do chesed. He came home at night, he was tired. On the phone, what do you mean? This person needs a shidduch, this person needs a job, this person this person that. And he didn't give up. I kept telling people he had enough drive for 10 people. As Mzil Zishorim says, Zrizus comes from the Slavos. There was a brand, the Avos Chesed of Avram Avinu. As was mentioned, the Koyach HaMamida B'Nesoyim, a lot of Sherakaitim, a lot of difficulties. Avram Avinu also came to a world that was a midbar, and Avram had to break the ground. Afterwards, Yitzchak and Yaakov were able to go on, and they were marked on their own. But the one who broke the ground was Avram Avinu, and what's the title of the Esenes Yonis? And that was the pshat. There was no such thing as stopping him, and in his mind, but it's also about Snei Aleches. We don't begin to know how many people he helped. A lot of the things that were mentioned, we didn't know ourselves. The Mishpacha didn't know. We find out Chassan he did for people, we didn't have a clue. We didn't know, and he was never looking for a brekel of kavod. Nothing. Nothing. He did it at the expense of his own gesund. He was pamato. As the Mishpacha knew, his margel of Apume at the end was, don't make me invalid. He says, ich bin a mensch. And at every simcha, he danced as a yimbo for 20. He said he's young. When he came to daven in the yeshiva, he wanted to be around young people. I had this morning, this morning, a Sfardi Bacher, a Bacher who happened to come to the yeshiva recently. He said, you know what? It's a strange thing, he said. I came to your father-in-law after davening in the yeshiva, and I had just begun seeing a girl recently. He comes up, I come over to him, he says, you know, you're going to get engaged soon. 2 weeks later, I became a chassid. And this is somebody who, Mamish came to the yeshiva, he wasn't even a regular Talmud in the yeshiva. He went over to him. Mamish, and today he told me this meister, but that was it. He thought, I had the koyach habracha. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom was, because he had this thing. He had the need of Avram Avinu of Avas Chesed. A day couldn't go by without Chesed. He couldn't live without it. But Nachmer is it. While the Muslims point out, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah points out only a few incidents in the beginning. What's the common denominator? The Alton Kiyam says, Noisei ba'oil im chaverei. Vayetze alecha vayar b'sid leisen. I was nishtayman. Somebody else's problem was like his problem. He couldn't have menucha. It wasn't Shadam Zedin's problem. It's my problem. And that's mamish. And that's why it was mentioned he was so selfless. He didn't think about himself. What do you mean? I have a problem. If that person doesn't have a job, they don't have this. It was nishtayman sever. der Mieder von Avram von Avas Chesed, and Leise Boilam Chavere. Agade Spede Duye, I'll mention just a member he used to say always from his mother's Zachen Lebracha. He said this Geseder, he said, was metut fayenen nenten mit. What you do for somebody else, that's what you take along with yourself. What you do for yourself, you don't take along. And as David mentioned, the Rebbe mentioned, the millions of the chasodim and the malachim that were created from this chasodim and toibus was something that we'll never know. Only the Rebbeinu Shalom knows, because the Sefer HaChaim, as we mentioned, his Sefer HaChaim, their Sefer Tolas Adam, only the Rebbeinu Shalom knows. And he was there to be married to his mishpacha. Everyone took their chelek in being taken care of him, especially after this tkufa that the Rebbe in Zachen Lebracha was nifter. Everybody, and it's talking to Shtayim Severin. As I said, we had the discussion of us in the house, how the Shtayim, how he was married, that leader of selflessness. They cared for him, they took care of him at the expense of their own kaiches, lamalab and the kaiches, but those are gesehen by the Tata. So the Eivish to help him, we should take away Agnes Pedagluye, that's something we can all take from. In this kufa, the Chablish on Mashiach, where there's so many tzoras, the Gemara says, Yasik Barteru, the Gemilus Chasodim. Gemilus Chasodim. Think, what chesed can you do? How can you do a chesed with somebody? You hear a tzara from a yid, what's kamiton? Daven and kemen. Zogat tefillah. Have someone else in mind. So the Eivish to help him, he should be a Melech Yesher. I'm asking Mechila Meir for my mishpacha, the ganze mishpacha, especially you live by us. And Chutzler, the ganze Zeit, I was an Aiden for the longest time so far. So the Eivish to help him, bis noch mehr 120 Jahre, Mashiach soll kommen. So, alle seien gesund, asking Mechila, on behalf of the mishpacha, my mishpacha, everybody. So the Eivish to help him, es soll sein Tage, beholach und vernechert in Kercha, and in Shemayim, seine Tfilis, seine Chesed soll angenommen werden, bei ganz Klal Yisrael. Yisich Baruch. And now, my Shvager, Rav Shlomo Wilhelm, to say, Divrei Hesped.
When I was interviewed to become possible candidate for the Menal of the Yeshiva 37 years ago. So, Yom Rosh Yeshiva was talking to me. He wasn't well at that time. He had some sort of surgery. We're talking, and I asked him, what prompted you to come to the 5 towns? What motivated you? He told me that his father, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Schusay Yogen Owen, told him. And he told it to me a number of times. Azoi wie the Torah is gegeben geworden in the Midbar, after Marit's Torah is done in the Midbar. Just like the Torah was given in the Midbar, so too you have to be Marit's Torah in the Midbar. And the rest is history. I remember one time specifically, driving with him down West Broadway. First year I became the Menal, and he told me, you'll see, this neighborhood is going to be shuls, more shuls, Shtiblach, yeshivas, they're going to come. And that's what the job is all about. I have to tell you that I truly believe, Kaf Kibalti from Rabbi, that everything emanates from the top. I have to tell you that the Rosh Yeshiva smiled when he came into the yeshiva, the way he greeted every Rebbe, every parent, anyone. It was infectious. It was something that was very unique and very special. In fact, I want to tell you that last few months when he wasn't 100% well, he made it his business to come to yeshiva almost every day. It was hard for him to go up the steps. So he was sitting in a conference room near the offices on the main floor. And one day he comes over to me and he says to me, "Where's the Yingle that came by yesterday?" I said, "Which Yingle? What's his name? Who's his Rebbe? I don't know exactly who you're talking about." He said, "No, he came to me and I asked him something and he gave me the right answer." He says, "And I promised him a candy. When I put my hand in my pocket, I didn't have a candy." So I told him, "You'll come back tomorrow, I'll have a candy for you." "Where's the Yingle? Where is he?" Well, finally, after some detective work, we found the Yingle. And the Yingle came to him and he said, Rebbe, you remembered about my candy." He says, "It's the most important thing to me, is your candy. You're learning Torah." I want to just tell you one thing. One last thing. I remember one time I had a bris out of town, and I had forgotten my talis and tefillin in the yeshiva. So I decided on the way to Muncie, I'll stop by the yeshiva, and I'll pick up my talis and tefillin. I pull up to the yeshiva 4:30, maybe 4:45 in the morning. Is Rosh Yeshiva's car outside at 4:45 in the morning. I got scared. I didn't know what to do. Maybe I should call the police. I don't know. Anyway, I went into the building. And there's the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Binyamin, sitting there in his office, huddled up. It was a freezing cold day. I said to him, "Rabbi Kamenetzky, what are you doing here?" He says, "I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I was here last night, and I don't remember if I set the heat. And I was worried that the kids are going to come in the morning, the Talmidim will come in the morning. It'll be cold, they won't be able to learn." He says, "I came, I made myself a coffee, and he was sitting there, mamish, huddled up with the shivers, because the kids, when they come in, it has to be warm." Rabbi Binyamin's whole life was Farmkeit. It was a smile. It was making a kid feel like $1 million. It was something very unique and very special. Spalo that he should be Mispalo, he should be a Melitz Yosher. Of course, the whole Mishpacha, the Yeshiva, the Talmidim, the Rabbeim, the teachers, the Moros. Baruch Hashem, he did something very unique and very special. We should be Zoichem Metz Hashem B'Yom Lovas L'Netzach. Amen.
Now, we have the discussed here, so we pray Kedushas, the Mr. Rebbe Shlita, Shame, a new mind. My father was a fan of the Lord for many years going back, but the shame that my ancestors could only occur.
I have the schus to be the menahel of the Sephardi Cheder day school in Toronto. Something that my father, Abba, was very proud of. But it's a challenge for an Ashkenazi and Torah to come into a Meiser that's very, very steeped in the Moroccan minhagim. It meets with a lot of resistance. And obviously there was tumults about it. He doesn't know the minhag. What do you know? What's he doing here? So the first few weeks, I was in the tefillah, we were davening. There was one boy that didn't stop talking the whole time. Kept on talking. And I went over to him and I said, you know, it's not proper that you're talking during davening. So he said, you're Ashkenaz, and I'm Sfard. Zeh minhag shel Abba sheli. Chas v'shalom, not being motzi laz. I think he was just looking for an excuse, but you know, I have a problem. I have a very big problem. Fridays, it's a very short day, and I have a very hard time getting home on time for Shabbos from school. Always something comes up, and always something gets in the way, and there's always a distraction. I come into my house, and it's a half an hour before suspension. And my bnei bayis, soll sein gesund und stark. See, where were you? How could you come home so late? And I said, Zeh minhag shel Abba sheli. And mamish, tzadikim, leinish, neseim, yom liyom, we were all sitting Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were all sitting there and saying, that Mama Allah Shalom is in Shamayim, and she's waiting. She's waiting, and it's an hour to Lichtenstein. And she's saying, Binyamin, where have you been? Why are you so late? And the Yereim, the tzaddikim, they came in, and they rushed. But he always told me, Tzvi, you have to come home earlier. But why? How did that happen? Why would he come home so late? How would it get in the way? What was the midah of Abba? The pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu said in Parshas Vayelech, he said to Klal Yisrael, Ben Meah ve'esrim shana anochi hayoim, lo yuchal oid lotzei solavai. He says, I can't finish. Everybody knows you do it. What do you mean it's finished? What do you mean lo yuchal oid? It says nas leichai. So Chazal have to say lo yuchal means is nista mimenu mayane achachmu. I believe that the Yesod HaChaim of everything that was said here today is that Abba never said the words Lo Uchal. Did you ever hear him say, I can't do it? The questions, the favors, the shidduchim, the hospital beds, trips, courts, meisters, Abba would never ever say, I can't. And if he was on his way home, even if it was 3 hours before Shabbos, and someone stopped him and said, Rabbi Kamenetzky, I just need you for 1 minute. Would he ever say to anybody, I'm sorry, but I can't? The words were not in his vocabulary to say there's something that I can't do for somebody else. But I do want to let you know a few stories where he did say no. Because it's important for us to know when to say no. Because how could such a person touch a family, a community, the entire region? How does that happen? Whether they were from the Jewish community or they were from other walks of life, everybody felt that he was his Zaidi, he was his rabbi. I'll tell everybody. It's very hard to live far away. And there were many times and many opportunities that arose where I said, let's come here. And I said it to Ma as well. I could get a job closer, I could be nearby. And I recall a story that happened to me when I was learning in Panovich. This was in 1982, Tafshin Ben days, and Zayder of Yankov came to Eretz Yisrael to visit. And I was so excited because the Zayder was coming and he was staying in Yerushalayim. And I decided that I was going to come and I was going to spend the week in Bayit Vagan, and I was going to be Mishamish the Zayder. I walked in and I said, Zayder, I'll help you out for the whole week, I'll be here. And he said, Tzvi, ich freue zu sein, aber du musst zurückgehen in Yeshiva in Bnei Brak. I said, aber das ist, ich will, dass der Zayder soll haben Nachas von mir. And he said, geh zurück, go back to Bnei Brak, was a yeshiva near Tel Aviv, and he said, besser, as ich soll haben Nachas von dir, from the Vikings. It's better for me to have Nachas from you from far away, and I'll have Nachas from you from far away. And Abba repeated this to me many times to encourage me to be so far away, each and every one of us, of the siblings, Sari and Esther and Shoshana and Mordechai. We all lived away in times in our lives. And he would give up that nachas to say, that's where you have to be. But it wasn't just words, there was actions as well. Because there were opportunities for other jobs in chinuch. He was offered a job to be a consultant and to visit schools and to give ideas about curriculum, or to be in the school, in the cheder, in the Makom Torah. And Abba used to say, I'll just tell you over what my father said. Tzvi, sinishda, kingresa, avoida, zu der Eibishter, wie zu sein am Melamed Torah zu Yiddische Kinder. Ringing in my ears. There is no more lofty purpose for you or for anybody than to be able to teach Torah to Jewish children. That's what you need to be doing. And he said it each and every time he traveled to Toronto, or he traveled to Chicago, or he traveled to all the places that we lived. And he appreciated a Rebbe, he appreciated someone that taught Torah, or spread Torah, or brought the values of Torah to any community. I learned in the Yeshiva Gedolah of Montreal for 5 years. Rosh Yeshiva, Mordechai Weinberg, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha. And after 5 years, I decided that I need to move on. 2 years at Beis Medrash, graduated high school, and I was learning 2 years by the Rosh Yeshiva, but nobody would dare go over to the Rosh Yeshiva and say that I have to leave. It was really scary because the ones that said, I need to move on, I want to go to the New York Metropolitan Yeshivas, it would be a dagger in his heart. Here he picked himself up from Eastern Parkway and traveled to Montreal and built the Meister and built Talmidim, and then he builds them up, and then they say they want to go back. They want to go back to Lakewood, they want to go back to the mainstream yeshivas. And I saw tremendous achmas nefesh, tremendous heartache Shiva had every time a bacher left, and it would mar the relationship of the Rebbe to the Talmud. And I didn't have the guts to go into the Rosh Yeshiva and say that I'd like to go away next month with the different yeshiva. So I called Abba. I said, Abba, can you do me a favor? Can you please call the Rosh Yeshiva and tell them that I'm not coming back next month? And he said, what? I should call him on the phone and tell him you're not coming back? Do you realize 5 years ago what you were, a 13-year-old boy, a little baby crying every second day on the telephone? You didn't have a zitzfleisch to sit in the Beis Medrash and learn for 20 minutes. You had to walk out of the shiur and come in and go out. Do you look at yourself now? Look what you've become. Do you know where that happened? It happened because the Rosh Yeshiva picked himself up and went out to the Midbar, built the yeshiva for you, and made you into something. So I said, well, what should I do? He said, I am going to call the Rosh Yeshiva, I'm going to make an appointment, and I'm going to say I'd like to come and speak to him. But Abba, how are you going to get here? He said, there's a bus. At that time, it was a very, very close Yedidim, Rabbi Sharor, and his Rebbetzin, sozusagen gesund stark mit einer Chasana. And he said, I'm going to get onto the bus for 8 hours, and I'm going to meet the Rosh Yeshiva for a half an hour, and then I'll get on the bus, and I'll come back. I said, Abba, 16 hours on the bus? He says, what's the Shaila? Where's your derech eretz? We got on the bus, and everybody in the yeshiva was waiting. We were all waiting in the lobby when Abba came, because they knew that there was going to be a meeting. He went into the office. She greeted him, and they were in there, and I was very nervous. I went into Beis Medrash. I was saying to him, I was learning, I wanted to know what was going to happen. And after half an hour, I got a message to come in. And the Rosh Yeshiva gave me a letter. He said, here's a letter for the Rosh Yeshiva's Philadelphia Yeshiva. I want you to be matzliach here. And you should just understand what a mechanech your father is, that he took the time at derech eretz to teach you what it means when somebody teaches Torah to your children. And the Kesha stayed close, so the Yeshiva came to my chasana, and it was always very, very makusha to him. I'll never remember that, forget that lesson. Because he appreciated it and he lived it. That was in chinuch. But what about the community? How did he become so close with people of the community? We know some very, very shy when it comes to someone who's not Jewish or someone who's not affiliated. How do rabbis become so close? I'll tell you another story. When we lived in Chicago, we lived right near the yeshiva. We bought a house 2 blocks away from the yeshiva, from the Skokie yeshiva. And my parents, Zechrein Levracha, came for Yom Meirah and for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and Sukkot, and I'm building a sukkah. And I needed a ladder. It's vacation time, it's almost Sukkot, school is closed. I was getting into the van to go pick up a ladder from the yeshiva. Build a sukkah, you have to have a ladder. And Abba says, see, where you going? I said, I'm going to the yeshiva. Why? Because I need a ladder. He says, why are you going to the yeshiva to get a ladder? I said, because this is a maintenance room and I can go in and I have the key and I'll get the ladder and I don't have to bother anybody. He says, no, you're not going. There's another time when he said no. So you going to yeshiva? He says, you have a neighbor. You have a neighbor next door? Your neighbor has a ladder. I said, the neighbor's not Jewish. He's from Yugoslavia. He gets nervous if we make too much noise. He says, did you ever go say hello to him? I said, no. He says, here, come here. You're going to go knock on the door, and you're going to introduce yourself. He says, I'm your neighbor. And he's going to say hello. He's going to tell me your name. And you're going to say, and by the way, can I borrow a ladder? That's what neighbors do, whether they're Jewish or whether they're not Jewish. But you have to make yourself a good neighbor. And I knocked on the door. And I said hello. And he said hello. And his wife was in the back, not knowing what I was there for. I introduced myself as, you're the neighbor, you're the one with all those little kids. And I said, yeah. He says, you know, we don't have any children. It's an older fellow, we never had any children. And it really, it's a music to our ears when we hear your children playing in the backyard. And I said, really, well, can I borrow a ladder? He said, here, you can have a ladder, of course. Take the ladder, keep the ladder, of course you can have a ladder. I'm so happy you came to ask me for a ladder. And there was Abba. He says, gee, was it so hard? That's another time when he told me no. And that neighbor used to watch out for our house if we went away. He used to always look out, make sure that everything was okay, would call, let me know that everything was fine. So how did it happen? How many times was Abba this close? Tzvi, I think you should come right in. Tzvi, get to the airport. Tzvi, come in. How many times? He fell, and then this Rita, and then the pressure is down, and into the 5-time rehab, and out of the 5-time rehab, and back to Sari's house, and then for Yom here, it's up, and then boom. And that's the reason why I went back to Toronto Thursday night at midnight. I flew back, everything was fine, it's all stable, it's just guys. It's going to be okay. Everything's okay. The doctor described, we're waiting for everything to kick in, and everything's going to start working again. I landed at 2:30 in the morning, and I went to school in the morning because I knew I got to go back, greet the kids, give out the little candies, and then 9 o'clock, see, get to the airport. And then the officer told the rabbi, you gotta go, rabbi, you gotta go. So how did it keep coming back? How did it keep coming back until we're sitting here today? I'll tell you how it happened. We used to sit on the porch on Barnard Avenue, used to come, and after the Suda, Abba always insisted, after the Suda, he needed to take a walk. He used to walk back and forth. He wanted to make sure that he didn't just eat and sit. He had to walk back and forth. He needed to do his exercise, and then we sat on the porch. Shabbos afternoon. And he used to just sit there, and people would walk by. He said, "See, look over there. She's wearing a shekel. Look at that family, 6 kinderlach." I said, "Abba, where did they send the kids to? Which yeshiva?" They sent to Yeshiva Tana. This was going to Dafin. I said, "Abba, why not Yeshiva?" He says, "What's the difference when they go to Yeshiva?" He says, "Let there be more yeshivas, let there be more meisters, let there be more shtimach." You see, he's carrying the Gemara, he's going to Dafin Yeshir. Do you remember you don't know what it was like? Who would dream? And then another one, and then he would say, "That one needs a shidduch. That one just got married. That one we have to install for a fool." He took credit, Baruch Hashem, for everything you see here. I don't know how many people are listening to me. But you know something? When you have all those zuchosim, then you have to be here. Because what did he say when he got to the rehab? He was crying. He said, "I don't want this to be my last stop." That was his lashon. I don't want it to. Rabbi Hashem, in 93, they're looking at him. He was 93 years old. What's up? No, there's so much more to do. You know why there's so much more to do? Because he never said, Lo yuchal. He never said, I can't. I think it's the message for everybody here today. Because there are many people here that didn't know him, or that don't know him. There are children here, little kids. But he took each and every one of them as if they were his own. We have 2 kalas here today, just like we had by my mother's Levaya. So there are 2 iniklach that are kalas. And it's very hard, it's a big mistake. When you're a kala to lose your Sadie. But he didn't leave, he nicht abgelast. No, wasn't the shidduch. He coming, it was a nice bacher, nice shidduch, maybe it's a good shidduch. But the Leia, managed he was matching everybody up. There was always, and he's got to be by the chasana, he's going to have a bris, and he's going to be by the chasana. And Baruch Hashem, Chassan Kala had the zchus to be there. On Tuesday, Chassan was traveling back to Eretz Yisrael, and he took his hand, and he gave him a kiss, and he made him feel like $1 million, like, thank you for coming to see me, because this is what I was waiting for. And 3 hours later, he was in South Gaza. Because never ever can he say, Lo yuchal. The next time we're faced with an isayim, with our children, with a chesed, with a mitzvah, let's never ever say, I can't. Because it never was on his lips. And that's why we're here today, because every single person was his daida. I promise I'll come home earlier on Fridays from now on. Because he used to always say to me, you have to come home earlier. I said, oh, you have to come home earlier. You don't understand what comes to your nefesh. You have to be coming back. You have to have derech eretz to make bias. They once asked, an elder Yid came into the Mir Yeshiva. He goes to the valley, Shalayim Yid, and he went back to a young man, the boy that was sitting there, and he says to him, Zog mir, wenn beit sich mir von einem jungen Mann zu einem älteren Yid? When does a young man switch from being a young man to an elder Yid, to an older person? What's the age? Is it 50, retirement age? Is it... What's the age that you change from a young man to an elder Yid? I don't know how to say it in English, but there's no English word for it. A young man is a young man, an elder Yid is an old Jew. So when is the point? When is the, right? Is it when you get Social Security, when you get Medicare? What changes? And the young man says, I don't know. So he says, I'll tell you. He says, you could be 40 years old, and all you're talking about is the things that you did. This is what I did, and this is what happened, and this was the history, and this is what happened. He says, you're 40 years old, you're an old man because your life is behind you. But you could be 93 years old, and all you're talking about is the next school you're going to build, and the next shidduch you're going to make, and the next tzedakah and charity that you're going to do, and you're a young man. The only way you can do that is if you take 2 words out of your vocabulary. You have to take the words, I can't do it, out of your vocabulary, because you can do it. Abba, you're inspiration, you're a chizuk for the ganze mishpacha, you were everybody's zaidi, you were everybody's rebbe, you were everybody's rabbi. Just take a look. Take a look at the cover that's being given to you today. You didn't run after the cover, you didn't look for the cover, but these are people that every one of them feels that you're theirs because you were always there for them. Ask Mechila, lived far away, tried to be nearby, name of my mishpacha. In case I didn't have Derech Eretz Koroi, I asked Mechila, should be his chus, should be Melziation, our family, for refuahs, insurance, for all those that need refuahs, insurance. You should go to the Maiden with Mom. should sit together and not just from us. You're not going to go running anywhere. You'll be looking down from Shemayim. You'll be sitting next to her. There won't be any phone calls. There won't be any stairs. There won't be anybody else except for the showering us with your schus together. She's like, your schus. She's almost the netzach. She's fools in shoes. Almost the netzach.
Now, for Lefkowitz, Rute, Moed Asra, Galan Shechesed,
The hour's late, it's almost 2 hours. I don't want to be Myrich. Just wanted to give over a heritage and a perspective for myself, for my family, and really for everyone that's here today. The Gemara tells us one of the Asara Ruge Malchus, Hananya ben Trajan. Hananya ben Trajan was found, and he was Makel Kehilas Barabim. Hananya ben Trajan was Makel Kehilas Barabim against what the Romans wanted them to do. Meshver, Rabbi Kamenetzky, was a Makel Kehilas Barabim. He was Makel Kehilas Barabim in a time when he was told it was impossible to have an all-boys yeshiva in this neighborhood. It was impossible to bring such a level of Yiddishkeit to such a neighborhood. But he was Makel Kehilas Barabim. He was Moisen Nefesh, like Rabbi Hananya ben Trajan, to be Makel Kehilas Barabim. I was with him for almost 20 years and watched his Mesiras Nefesh day in and day out. I was thinking recently that when I came, he was close to 60 years old. And at that age, he continued to go and go and go until recently, as if he was a young man. He never stopped. Hananya ben Trajan was found with the Sefer Torah b'Cheker. The Shver lived with the Sefer Torah b'Cheker. They wrapped the Sefer Torah around Hananya ben Trajan, and they burnt Hananya ben Trajan. As he was burning, the Talmidim said to Hananya ben Trajan, "Ma ato roya?" Rebbe, what do you see? Strange question. Hananya ben Trajan is being burnt alive. And Talmidim have nothing to ask except, "Ma ato roya?" What do you see? And he answers, he says, "Gevilam nisrafu v'oisiyas parchas ba'avir." The parchment's being burnt, but the letters are flying in the air. What does that mean? Ma'at roya. The Talmidim knew that it was an auspicious occasion. The Talmidim knew that it was an opportunity. Here today for us, for me, for everybody, being here at such a levaya is an opportunity. Ma'at roya. What do you see? Gevilam nisrafu, the parchment is gone, but oisi is parchas ba'avir. I saw a statement for Moshe Soloveitchik that he said on the stipler, and he asked the kasha, what do you mean Gevilam nisrafu v'oisi is parchas ba'avir? That the letters are in the air. It should have said oisi is parchas la'shamayim. That the letters are going up to Shemayim, to the sky. And he said, Talmud Chacham is nimshal to Sefer Torah. And the Gemara says, Hani Bavloi Tivshoy, the Kami Mikami, Sefer Torah, the Kami Mikami, Talmud Chacham. A Talmud Chacham is a Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah is Nisraf. His Oisi is Parchas Ba'avir. When a Talmud Chacham is Nifter, his Ma'asim Toivim, his body is the parchment, but his Ma'asim Toivim and his Torah are his letters. And he said those letters are Oisiyas Parchas B'Shamayim Ba'avir. Right now, the Ma'asim Toivim Rabbi Kamenetzky the Torah, Yeshishim, Ribe Oisias, but Torah says the Megala Mukers, 600,000 letters in the Torah connected Klal Yisrael. It was a Yid that was connected Klal Yisrael. All those letters, all those Meissen Torah, all of his good skies that you heard about, his interest in helping people shidduchim, his interest in helping people get jobs, helping people get parnasa, his interest in chinuch was foremost. All those are now oisias purpose ba'amr. Each and every one of us have a chance to grab onto one of those mitzvahs, to makabel that mitzvah, and to say, I'm going to fulfill that mitzvah. I'm going to take one mitzvah from him, and I'm going to fulfill that mitzvah. And that's the oisias purpose ba'amr. We have that opportunity now to go ahead by this Levaya to say, you know what I remember most about Rabbi Kamenetzky, and that's what I'm going to emulate, and that's what I'm going to become, and that's what I'm going to focus on. When the Kabbalah we say, Shahalas la'oid lomoy, he goes not la'oilam haba, but la'oid lomoy, was la'oid lomoy. And I think the meaning of it is that we say every morning, Eilu Dvorim, Sha'oifim Periseim Ba'olam Hazeh, V'keren Kayemes Ba'olam Haba. Rav Shimon Schwab explains what's the Periseim, what's the Paris, what's the Paris. The Paris are, he said, that you live a life in this world of Olam Haba. He fulfilled those mitzvahs, he lived on this world a life of Olam Haba, and he goes on to the Olam Haba that he built in Shemayim. It's a Shem we should continue to be a Me'eletz Yosher for all of the mishpachas, for the yeshiva, for Klal Yisrael. To Yisrael Baruch.
Yeshiva Teres Chaim, who did Divrei Hesed?
I first have to, a lot of times when I speak at a yeshiva dinner or something, and he already wasn't speaking or he gave it over to me, he would throw papers at me, but you have to thank these people and thank this person and notice this person. So I feel to start the last kufa since he fell, but so many people that an institution that we have to thank really loved him like he was his own father. And I thank the members of Atzola. I have to recognize like my brothers, 2 generations of Krenkel's, Mike and Mayer, who managed to help out 2 generations of Kamenetzkys. And I had solo people there, people over there, the doctors, there were so many doctors who were just so caring. I just mentioned Dr. Glack, and was always there for us, and Dr. Makovsky, and all the other ones. And I'm sure the people I'm going to forget. I just so thankful to Hewlett from Grand Devil, who just was so nice, so accommodated them, and Hayes. And of course, my sisters, my brother, the Sari and Gitzchok, took him in and promised, they're not young people. I promise they're not young people. And not easy for 77, probably don't take care of 90-year-old father. What he made, and Shani and Simcha, Shani took him, he was so sorry. Shani hit the shoulders that she had, and asked her, Shani, I'm talking to be here at this moment, and to really care. And to try to watch his health, because he did things that Shlomi said seemed so reckless. Of course, my wife and see Miriam who came at the drop of a dime for any reason and for any no reason for Sipka and Zora alike. I'm sure the people that have forgotten and over upon him who afforded him so much respect. It's very hard because he was the father. He met the Rebbe. My friend. We really had good times together. Just going places. We didn't go on too many trips when I was a kid. That was what took me to the city. He was too busy with the yeshiva. Took me to the city when I grew up. To visit this person, to visit that person. He taught me so much. And he treated me like a partner. I felt so small when I was with him. He was such a big person, things that I noticed he didn't care about. He just was, but it was so petty. And he was so large. People talk about him as far as the capacity. He was the best lady in the world. He was just I said he was like a grandpa. He was just to go and to play with grandchildren and to make funny faces and to wear funny things. There was nothing beneath him, just like a regular grandfather does. And we're not talking about a few grandchildren and a few great-grandchildren. Hundreds. I just remember making like one of the Fekte Chanukah to write a note to every single child and great-grandchild before Chanukah. Make sure that each one gets something. Everybody loved him. So why are so many tears? He's 93 years old. He's an old man. My father was a young man. And everybody knows he was a young man. He ran around like a young man. He was full of life. He was full of vigor. He was full of zest and full of new ideas. And every week he had a new idea to make pirchei when he was today. Only 90 years old. He used to say the Shabbos is falling apart in the neighborhood. There's an area of kids aren't carrying siddurim, they're carrying baseball, they're carrying football. We have to make groups, make programs for them on Shabbos. And I remember calling meetings together and establishing and trying to establish. How is it possible that one person who was larger than life touched the myriad life of the most diverse group of people, creations of their Rebbeinu Shalom? My father taught me one thing. He always talked on the parasha. Always talked on the parasha. He has so much written on the parasha. Every parasha. So I looked in the Chumash and I opened up and it says the following. Ishik, he says, Ria, woman gives birth. This portion is preceded by the story about the kosher and non-kosher animals. Omer Rab Simloi, Kishem sheyitzirasei shel Adam, achar kol behema. Just like the creation of man and creation in Genesis and Bereshis is after the creation of all animals, so the Torah of the human being is taught after the Torah of kosher and non-kosher animals. And I ask you all, what is the Torah of the human being if this passion? A woman gives birth and she's tamei and you make her pure. A child is born and he's an Earl and you give him a bismillah, and there's a story of a person who has leprosy who's a mitzvah and you make him pure. Why is that Torah Sa'adah? There's so much. There's 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. There's laws about real estate. There's laws about property damage. There's laws about mezuzah and Shabbos. Why is that the Torah Sa'adah? Rabbi say, what is the Torah Sa'adah? What is the Torah of a person? The pasuk in Yeshaya tells us a pasuk about the Rebbeinu Shalom that I believe is encapsulated in the goal of my father, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, in his goal of life to emulate the Almighty, the Rebbeinu Shalom, and to fulfill the halach of the drach of the mitzvah, we should walk in his ways. The Nabi says, pick up, clean up, pave a path, remove any obstacles from my nation. This is what the Holy One says. I speak to those who have a low heart and a low spirit. To make live the spirit of those people who are broken. And to make
the spirit of those who are crushed. That is the Torah Sa'adam. The Torah of a man of the Bria is to take the baby who's an Oral and give him life, make him a part of Klal Yisrael. To wake the woman who's impure and allow her to go into the Beis HaMikdash. The Torah Sa'adam is the Torah of Zois Torah Sa'atzayr B'yom Ta'arosei, is to teach us what not to speak and how to uplift our lives. That was my father. Lahachyois Ruach Shefallen, Lahachyois Leinit Koyim. That was the type of my father. You know, everybody spoke about when he would lose his phone, he would go into a panic, especially close to Shabbos. You guys may lose your phone, you're worried about your business people. He wasn't great at technology, so he put a W before every widow, so he'd be able to list in the name W, and then the name W Simon, W, and all the W's. Sit on the phone and click, 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 make the phone call. He would walk around, his pockets were stuffed. He happened to Rosh Hashiva. He had thickness probably, and his pockets were stuffed. There were 10 job resumes in this pocket, and 10 shidduch resumes in that pocket. And he would see people, he would go to the office, he wouldn't care, he'd be the biggest people. I said, he's such a big, asking this simple guy, he didn't care. He just didn't care. Most people have his ruach, his main thing, and I listened to the tape that he made. My whole life is to make sure that any child gets a Jewish education. And he gave up his life, he gave up his family life, and he gave up his Torah. I know my father must have been a tremendous talent for him, because so many midrashim he would say over to me by heart. And I'm sure though I saw him learning early in the morning, and Fridays and Shabbosim, but he was so busy. And he knew Tanakh, he knew Psukim, he would correct me on a Tnuach Tanakh. And he gave so much of it up. So I just want to learn, we say by davening, because he loved davening. Elu devarim sha'oichel adam meichel perseim ba'olam hazeh v'ha'keren kayemis ba'olam haba. Abba, you ate these fruit ba'olam hazeh. You got the fruit. You had a happy life. You're always happy. Like Rambam's keren kayemis ba'olam haba ve'eluheim kibbut ofe'eim. The respect, the possible to have a serious conversation with my father without him mentioning something from his father or his mother. He spoke so reverently about his mother and his father. And I'll never forget that even the yeshiva had difficult times. He was so concerned to print over the books, the svarim that my grandfather, Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetzky, wrote. And he went to all types of resources. I'll never forget, I said to him, we were struggling. And I said, you're going raising money, it's not fair to me. You're going to raise money for the splitting of Zaydi's farm. There's so many people that Tarvanas take here. He said, don't worry, I'll go to the people from the other yeshivas who don't give to this yeshiva, and I'll ask them for the money. Right? Keep it over aim. I'll never forget when I don't know when it sticks in my head. I don't think he touched me. I don't remember. Maybe on my wrist. But when my sister Sari was expecting, 1968, and I'm a little kid. I'm 9 years old, 10, 11 years old. I was saying, oh wow, we're gonna have a baby. It's gonna be boy. What do we name Moshe? David. And we call him Yaakov. My grandfather Yaakov was alive. And in front of him, he turned white. How do you talk like that? I just reverberated. Like, to think that that my grandfather would pass Chas v'Shalom, the reverence he had. Milas Chasadim. Where can I begin? I want to tell you something.
My father was operated in 1981. He had kidney stones, so they had to do an operation. They couldn't get it out. After the operation, he was having terrible pain. They took a CAT scan. There was a catheter that was left inside his kidney. Well, I don't know whether. So they took a scan. Rabbi, the doctor left a catheter. And he was walking around with pain. He met him the way we told him. What are you doing? He said, I'm going back to have another operation. He says, I want to sue the guy. He says, I can't sue the guy. He gives money to the yeshiva. How can I have to be grateful to him? I should hurt his reputation. People should find out. I looked up. They gave $100 a year. I didn't mean it. If I forgot to go ahead and write a receipt for an $18, he would come and scream at me. Gave this shit. Why didn't you wait? She said she didn't get a receipt yet. I said, it's a week, Abba. It's $18. It doesn't make it. We lived on those $18 checks. They meant so much to him. He was so grateful to anybody who helped. In Mills Chasodim, I'll never forget, we had, the yeshivas changed. They have these fancy events. We used to have such simple things. So they wanted to follow the fancy. We made an event on Man, and then download it, $1 million. I mean, big number. We made an event exclusive. You have to give almost 5 figures. Yeah, by invitation only. That's what the people say that, the marketing people say to do. Into the meeting, into this fancy hotel, come these guys. One guy has a pocket pen with pens all over it and this and papers. And I'm standing in the rabbi, the directors, we didn't say, so Rabbi Kamenetzky called me to come. Another guy comes, Rabbi Kamenetzky called me to come. So I went, why did you? He said, because there's going to be a fellow in the real estate business here, and I'm looking for a job in real estate. And so he told me, come to the event. It's a person who was in electrical contracting, and I have the biggest guy, one of the biggest electrical engineers here. So he was sitting at this thing and asking people to give out the rent. It became a job here instead of a fundraiser. That was it. He didn't care. I met in the last few weeks 3 different people from pharmacies. And I realized what happened. They said, oh, your father used to always stop by my pharmacy to get vitamins. Another lady told me she just opened a pharmacy. My father would stop there to get vitamins. And then the other pharmacy. So the John told me he would take one. He said, there are people, Shabbos pharmacies are opening up. We have to help them. So he would buy 1 bottle from this pharmacy, 1 bottle from that pharmacy, and 1 bottle from the next pharmacy. That's the type of person he was. And he wasn't young already at that stage. I don't remember him being late. He'd wake me up early. I didn't get up, that was it. He wasn't going to be late. I many times was supposed to pick him up, whether it was for a bris or for something. It was a kufa before we got a driver, so we made turns about Bachram. And the Bachram and the Yeshiva Gedolah were just so, we loved him so much that we'd come pick him up from his house. And one time, it was a winter, and he's waiting, we'd wait outside in his coat, it was freezing. And if I was late, but he would sit outside, I shouldn't have to come into the house. And I'd go in, it was an aide from my mother with Nellie. She said, no, your father went outside a long time ago. So I went one time, he wasn't there. And he's not in the house. And I asked him how to get the shoe. He goes like this. I want to tell you, a week later, I was outside my house one morning, and the garbage truck drove up. And the man from the garbage truck, I promise, told me, we took your father to synagogue last week. He didn't care, he didn't hesitate. He would walk, when they opened the new shul, when they opened the Young Israel alarms here, he would walk there. And he was good with Young Israel, he was the Rav there, but he continued, he walked there. He said, there's a new Rav on the corner, we have to walk. And it was a long walk. He told me I'm lucky. Only till the next telephone call. Then he would say the next telephone call. How taking in people to guess how many strangers and strange people came to our house. He didn't care. Not only to our house, I'll never forget, it was a traffic jam, George Washington Bridge, we had a homeless guy He said, I don't know where they're touching his thumb, and he wanted to pick him up, and my mother pleaded, pick him up, what are you doing? He said, doesn't need to run, we're going anyway across the bridge. He just had a heart of gold. How many visits to hospitals? For the organization, he was a one-man Bika Chaylim. Just probably 6 months ago, when he fell, he didn't break anything, but he had to go therapy around the 7th floor. And the therapist told me, my gosh, your father, it takes me an hour to do. I said, why, he can't walk? No, he stops at every single room and says hello and says get well to every single patient. It's the way he is. Look, it's a famous was in the nursing home where my father was, and he made it this effort to visit. And my father was so weak. And I asked him, when you visit him, it's a famous, it's so nice of you. He said, I have to. No, but he's just not himself. He's just not himself. Even during the Grand Deli, Esther and Shlomi came, and they make a Seder in the afternoon. I told them that day that we went to a dear friend of his father was a dear friend. And I was telling him over that he remembers his father, they made him a Seder in the afternoon because he's an old person, and the father said to him, I Seder after a baloney Seder. And my father liked it. He said, we're going to make a Seder at night. And the truth is, they made that afternoon Seder, and then he made his own Seder at night, and people went around. He sent my sister to go around to old people who were trained retirement who wanted to make a Seder at night. It was so hard, it was so tired. And he made a Seder, and he asked us matzahs, and he just sat there, just brought everybody around his table. That's the person. Achnosas Kalma. There are birchas habayis, besides the resumes, besides the shidduchim. It was Meshuggah, he had to give everyone a special birchas habayis. Levoyas HaMeis, I feel so small. There was never a time when I went to a shiva house, and this is the last year, he used to drive up the whole day. He would say, your father was here yesterday. Your father was here already. It was, everybody goes, oh, you missed the Shiva. I don't remember. I don't think he missed the Shiva. He just went to every Shiva. When I was a little kid, there was no Nisaska, there was no list. You pick up the New York Times and read the obituary just to see. Just didn't chazik them. But I'll tell you how much he cared about people in this Simon. Rabbi Shachon, he should be well, so especially, he asked the boys to write letters to him, and everyone wrote a special letter. And I was reading the letters, and I just thought how much of this relationship. And I was reading him one letter, each at the bedside, and then I burst out crying. I said, dear Rabbi Kamenetzky, I love you, I miss you, I hope you're back in yeshiva. I can never forget how you came to my house to learn with me after my father died. Love, Yosef Schoenfeld. This is not a story of years ago. This is 3 months ago. He pleaded with me to take him to a minute down slower, especially after it was hard for him to talk. And he'd say, please, take me to a slow minyan. He would daven meal b'meal. He would sit there hours after davening ended, an hour. Davened so beautifully, so perfectly. He hated when we davened fast. And he held on to the siddur. Wherever he went, when we wheeled him, everybody knows he always held the siddur. How many people sat in 357 Barnard making peace, husbands and wives, fighting partners, peace between friends. The solid Torah connected Kulam. He loved yeshivas, he loved B'nai Torah, he loved to ask them questions. He was so proud of every Talmud that he had, even 50 years old. It was my Talmud. He loved Talmid Chachamim. He made Paul meeting, made the first Paul meeting for Beis HaTalmud. People said, Rabbi, you have your own yeshiva. What are you making for money? You're organizing in the home of Jeffrey Glick to Paul meetings. He didn't care. He said, there's enough money for everybody. Just got to get him to give it. People have enough money. Nobody's not giving to this yeshiva, to my yeshiva, because they're giving to another yeshiva. He didn't care. He ran around till the end to Skolem. Thousands of dollars. I thought people just appreciate, oh, you follow the trustee, I gave you a few $1,000 for school, the Skolem meisters. It was just unbelievable. He loved Torah. He loved to say Berkach. If you're going to go see the house, there are pages, notebooks filled with different Torah. Don't try to print them. He papers all over himself. Every time he would just write envelopes, all over the place. All types of machshavas. His most love was in yeshiva, to sit like Rabbi Erkman, sit downstairs and just talk to the kindlach even after, not much in the last few months. Just hold their hands, to sing with them, to daven with them. He just loved Torah. He loved Torah, and I don't want you to forget how much important that was to him. Talmud Torah, Kaneka, all the other stories, all the politicians, all that. It's very nice, but it's meaningless compared to his love for Torah Hashem. So I'll end with the pasuk where it said, no, I'll just say it with another book. Last year, he was in the youngest Zul with me, he was davening, and he was a little disabled. And a man came over to him, and he gave him $1. He thought he was a shulach from Israel. He gave him $1. And he didn't say anything, he just held his hand, and he said, let me ask you something. Where do you live? He said, in Woodman. Do you have a house? He said, yeah. Do you know who built the house? He said, no. He said, do you know who the architect was? He says, how should I know the architect? But do you know that there was a builder? He says, of course. Do you know that there was an architect? He said, yeah, of course. You should be well. So I said, did you tell him what you meant by that? He said, no. Maybe he'll figure it out. So I say, time's moving on in 60 years. You should know there was a builder, there was an architect. Just remember that. Remember one other thing that he taught my wife. We were in Pittsburgh. She was being, I don't know, harassed by the administration of the school she taught. And she called and she said to him, he wants to quit. And she said, Kamenetzky's don't quit. We don't quit. I turned to the family. We don't quit. To keep on, the legacy has to live. Whatever we do, we have to fight hard for. And continue the legacy. Rabbi Binyamin Amar, Yidir Hashem Yishkoy Lebetach, Choyfe for love kol hayom, he hovered over the mikdash. His whole life, he worried about the family. He worried, he loved all of you. All the 8 o'clock and Oren o'clock, like his own children. Ubein Sefer Shachem, and he'll rest between the great shoulders of the Rebbeinu Shalom. But you had big shoulders, and you'll rest on the shoulders of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Kanpei Ashina. Yizecher Baruch. Umacha Hashem Elokim Dimamel Kol Panim. Give us the strength to go forward, to continue to build this great institution, and all the institutions that were the offshoots, that they should be the L'Shem Seferes, L'Shem Maya Gadol, L'Shem Chayokar, L'Shem Fire, at Bias Krem Tzedek, like Apostle Shmuel said, which is so imminent, L'Chiyas HaNation. Amen.
Now, everyone please rise. The son from Chaim Noble will say the Kelmoleh. The information about the Levaya and the other information will be at home.
B'ma
Toirim, Kizoyar Orokia Mazhirim, Es Nishmas Moireinu Rav Binyamin, Ben Moireinu Rav Yaakov Sheolach, Le'olam Ha'olim. Ba'avur Shemishpachto Yitein Tzedaka B'yad, Haskoras Nishmasai, Beganei Dentei Menuchasai, Lochein Balo Rachamim, Yastireyu, B'seiser Kinofav Le'olamim, V'yitzroir b'yitzroir achayim es nishmasoi, Adonai nachalosoi, V'yonuach v'shalayim al mishkavai, v'noimar amen.
Shem Ola Tamidei Yeshiva, Yedida and Nastalim, Rabbi Medrash, Ares Mechila from the Yeshiva, Rabbi Binyamin and Yaakov. We didn't give you the time covered. They should be very searching. The family was at Shiva at 357 Barnard Avenue in Woodmere until Friday afternoon. Philadelphia Rosh Yeshiva will sit until Wednesday in Woodmere, then we go back to Philadelphia. Shabbos will be at 8 o'clock, Mincha and Maya will be at 7:40. The same with the procession here follows. Rabbi Kamenetzky's sister, Rabbi Binyamin will be sitting in Inwood at 128 Donahue this afternoon, and then we'll be going back to Baltimore. The same for the procession from the Levi will be as follows. We're going to ask all the women to please go out this door now. The Aron will go out this door. There's a driveway that will go to William Street. The men can come behind the Aron. We'll go through the Yeshiva building to William Street. We ask all the women to go through the Yeshiva building to William Street. We go up William Street until Franklin Avenue, for Peninsula Boulevard. The Levi will stop at Peninsula Boulevard. All that the Kavur will be in Basin Strong Cemetery in Woodbridge, New Jersey. That's on Route 1. Anybody that wants to go to the Beis Olam should either go directly from here by car, or from here, the Aron will go to the Yom Israel of Woodmere, we'll stop at the Yom Israel of Woodmere, and then the procession will line up in front of the Yom Israel of Woodmere, and we hope we'll have police escort the whole way. So again, if anybody's going to go, they can go directly. It's Route 1.
No, Peninsula Boulevard, which way?
The route will be Peninsula Boulevard, Rockaway Turnpike, Belt Parkway, Adams Crossing. So yes, the 8 o'clock, please carry it on. Put the Aron directly into the hearse. Put the Aron directly into the hearse.
Amen.